Hey guys, every one of us has fears, limiting beliefs, doubts. And if these go unnoticed, if you don't shine light on these, they will dictate where you go in life. It is normal to have these, we're human, but it is kind of bad when we are not aware that these things control our life, right? So today I will be kind of breaking down what our limiting beliefs are, where they come from, and kind of honestly how to expose them and how to stop being controlled by the doubtful thoughts that your mind feeds us. So before we get into it, if you guys can like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that, it will be greatly appreciated. And let's get into this. So, like I said, these limiting beliefs are literal illusions. You know, if you want to go somewhere in life but you have limiting beliefs, most likely where you want to go, someone has already achieved it. So it is physically possible, which means you are capable. But the only thing that is making you seem incapable is the thoughts that you have repeated to yourself and you have believed in, right? But where do these thoughts come from? You know? Because I don't think that you sat down and said, "Okay, I'm going to doubt myself and I don't want to go anywhere in life and I'm not good enough." You know? I don't think that you genuinely want to think that. But as a kid, when we were growing up, we observed things, we experienced things, we were told things, and the results that we've gotten out of our life as a kid kind of set the foundation for how much we believe in ourselves and literally how we perceive anything in our life, right? So I think that's the first step is understanding where these fears and self-doubt came from, right? Because fear and self-doubt can come from literally anything. Fear is honestly illogical, right? Because most of the stuff you fear is your interpretation of it, and which is illogical. Because logic means everyone can agree to it. It is logic. It is a fact. But your fears, the way let's say you perceive money, is way different than someone else's perception of money. So the way you perceive money is literally an illusion because it is your own kind of personal perspective on it, right? So this is the first step. Understanding that what you believe about yourself is you can attach from that. You don't have to live with that because you realize this was put onto you by somebody else. You looked at others and then made conclusions as a child. That's just what our brains do as children, right? We absorb everything like a sponge, right? And our childhood really dictates what we think about certain topics. So, now that we know where these came from, how do you deal with this? Because these thoughts are really kind of like engraved into our mind, like a heat press thing on your brain. That's what these limiting beliefs kind of are. So what I do, a practice that I like, that I'm going to actually use myself as an example later on in the video so you guys can realize how foolish my fears are and how foolish your fears are. So the first thing to do is you need to be aware of your thoughts. Really, really listen to your thoughts and don't try to block off certain thoughts. Don't try to run away from your thoughts because the thoughts you run away from are typically the thoughts that control your life, right? So, you need to listen to that little voice in your head, right? When you think about the life you desire, right? Just think about the house you want to live in, how many kids you want, your bank account maybe, which one your bank account look like, your physical, just your dream life, right? Really think about that. And that little voice that you hear, what is it saying? Is it doubting you? Is it saying, "Oh, I don't know if we can do this," or "Oh, you can't do that," or "Oh, that's a lot of hard work. Can you even do that? You haven't put in no hard work in your past." What is this little voice telling you? This little doubtful voice that is intimidating you when it comes to becoming who you want to become, when it comes to achieving your goal in life. What is that telling you? So now that you've become aware of what this little voice is trying to tell you, write down what it is telling you in your notes app or on a piece of paper. Write down what this little voice is telling you. Even if it's embarrassing or intimidating or it sounds dumb, write it down. Please write it down, right? And eventually you'll get this list, right? This list of fears and self-doubt and just limiting beliefs. You'll make a list, and that is a big step to this process. So you'll have this list, right? And I want you to read this list. Read out loud, right? Just say it out loud. And you kind of realize that most of your self-doubts, and this takes time, by the way. This list takes time. Because that little voice is always in our head. But anyways, you'll realize once you read these fears out loud, they're honestly kind of dumb. They're pretty foolish. They don't make too much sense. And most of the time, these doubts or these questions you have about yourself, you don't have an answer to. So if you don't have an answer, then then it's just not productive in your life if you can't even answer these questions about yourself, these fears, you know? Most of them, like I said, are dumb. They're illogical. And these fears, now that you've stopped running away from them and now that you've exposed them, you've kind of shined a light on them, they honestly kind of scamper. They kind of diminish slowly but surely. They have less hold of you when you realize that you're the one kind of holding yourself back. No matter what you've gone through in the past, you have the choice to not let it dictate your present moment. Right? So we kind of have, still maybe a little confused. I will tell you, I wrote down some of my fears. And when I say fears, they're not genuine fears. They're just these little thoughts, that little voice in my head that is trying to hold me back, right? So here are some of mine that I've shined light on, and now they really have no hold over me. And when I read them, you realize that they're kind of dumb, you know? So, what will my parents think of this YouTube channel? This was a kind of a fear of mine, even though I knew that they would be supportive. There was literal proof that they would be supportive because they were supportive of what I do. But there was this fear that was still holding me back, that was illogical, that was holding me back, that was making me scared. Next one, I don't like how I'll be perceived. Okay, perceived by who? What is their perception of me? How is that going to impact my life? How is that going to make my life better? Their perception. It is just simply not important to me. Another fear. How will this lead to money? How will this YouTube channel lead to money? And this was me thinking in kind of a, well, it's not even my genuine thoughts. You know, your fears, like I said, your fears and self-doubt came from an external source. They're not true, authentic, genuine thoughts. So how will this lead to money? Just honestly kind of a dumb fear. Like, will I not just start this channel because I don't think you can get money? Like, it's just simply foolish, you know? What do I even know? This one is a little valid. What do I even know? I'm 20 years old. What do I even know? This is the thing. How will I ever know anything if I don't take action? You know? And I think I talked about this in another video, but it's about not feeling ready or not feeling like you have the qualities to pursue who you want to become. And that is what is keeping you back. Because as long as you take steps forward, you will eventually gain those qualities. So the fear of what do I even know is simply dumb because it just keeps you stuck. You know? How long will it take me to gain consistent viewers? I have no idea. I don't. So why is that? Why am I going to be held down by this limiting belief when I simply don't know, when I don't have the answer? It's just foolish to believe in something that you don't know about, you know? Another fear, what if I run out of things to say? I had this legitimate kind of fear and self-limiting belief on what if I run out of things to say. But it's foolish because every day that I'm alive, I have thoughts in my head that I can talk about. But there was still that voice that seemed valid enough for me to be held back by it on what if I run out of things to say. Which, as long as I'm alive, I won't have anything to not say. I'll always have something to say as long as I'm alive. What if this gets no views? This is being limited. This thought is being limited by something that I have no control over. I really don't have no control of how many views I get. So why will I let something that I have no control over dictate my actions and hold me back? It's foolish. It's illogical. Once you really read these, they are simply illogical. What if I'm not smart enough? Okay, like, what does that even mean? Like, am I gonna wake up one day and just feel smart enough? Like, you guys see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these fears, when you read them out loud, are just simply, they're just dumb. Like, what if I'm not smart enough? For what? For what? Most of the time, these fears, once you read them out loud, they're just dumb. Once you read them, you kind of break out of it. Once you read them out loud, you break out of it because, okay, what if I'm not smart enough? What's the next self-limiting belief that my brain has to say regarding to what if I'm not smart enough? Nothing. Like, the fear stops right there once you expose it, you know? Another one, my message isn't getting across clear. I think this one's valid because, speaking with clarity is a skill and something I do need to practice. But the way this thought was kind of presented to me is it was kind of discouraging. Like, oh, your message isn't getting across clear. No one's going to watch you. You're not going to be successful. This and that. But me practicing and me making more videos will help me to get my message across clearer. I think our fears, how do I word this? I feel like our fears are they're trying to give us answers to how we will get to our goal, right? But most of the time, these fears, believing in them is what's holding us back from getting those answers, even though the fear wants answers. But once you feed into the fear of wanting answers, in your actual life, you won't get the answers. You guys know what I'm saying? Like, you won't gain the experience and the confidence and the competence to actually attain the qualities you want, the qualities that your fear kind of wants, Last one for today. This is a little cringy. Another one where it's like, okay, and now you see me and I'm like, okay, like, that's really no big deal. But in the moment, these are the little voices that control our life. Something as foolish as this is a little cringy, well, if I was unaware, would have kept me from not pursuing who I wanted to be because I thought it was cringy. I would keep living a life that I didn't want to live just because I was going to be a little cringy. So, that's all I have to say today. If you struggle with self-belief and you have maybe self-doubt or limiting beliefs, I have a playlist that I will link probably in the corner or whichever corner that you can watch. I bet it'll help you out. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that. Thank you.